All right, today we're diving into a topic that I get asked about all the time, which is how to safely buy and sell Instagram theme pages and how to avoid getting scammed. And if you don't know me yet, my name is Pasha. I've been in the Instagram theme page space for 3 years now, and at one point I was managing over 20 different pages simultaneously. I've also coached over 100 people in this business on how to start or scale their Instagram theme page, part of that including how to potentially buy and sell a theme page as well. So I've seen everything at this point, the good deals, the shady ones, and also the straight up scams. I've been scammed myself in the past, and I've also seen it happen to people around me, and believe me, it is not a good feeling at all. So if I could prevent just one of you watching this from getting scammed, that would make me happy because I don't want to see any of my viewers lose their money or their theme page. So yeah, let's get into this complete guide that'll keep you safe and make sure you know how to go about buying or selling a page. All right, so first and foremost, there are a couple things that are good to be aware of, okay? The first thing has to do with Meta's terms of service. So buying and selling accounts is technically against Meta's terms of service. All right, this is important to understand. Obviously, this doesn't mean people don't do this, right? People buy and sell accounts every single day, but it's important to know that it's technically against the platform's terms of service and just rules and regulations. All right, so the risk of your account being banned is very, very, very low, but it can happen. Okay, like I've never seen it actually happen before, but considering it's against Meta's terms of service, it means that it is possible that your account could be banned, right? So essentially what this means is as long as you're not like an idiot and you're like blabbering about to everyone that you just bought this new page and blah, 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 you'll be fine, right? So like if you just buy a new page and you like post all over the story of the new account saying, oh, this page is just bought, I just bought it. This is not my original page. And you're just like telling people, who knows, maybe someone will like report you and take it up with Meta, who knows, right? So technically, it could get banned, but like I said, the chance is very, very, very low, and I've never actually seen it happen throughout years of being in the Instagram space, all right? So it's important to know, right, just so you know, but it's not something you're going to have to worry about most likely, okay? And the second thing here is your mindset, right? When going through the process of buying or selling a page, you never want to you never want to be desperate, let alone come off as desperate, right? Because if you're desperate, this means you're vulnerable, and if you're vulnerable, it means you're more susceptible to scams, and you don't want to get scammed, right? So don't be desperate. Like if you're coming off in a place of desperation, like if you have a page and like for whatever reason you're like really, really wanting to sell, especially if someone has like some fake offer that's way too good to be true, and you're coming off as like desperate to sell it to them, like you're going to be taken advantage of, right? The same way if you buy a page, like if you're going back and forth with someone and you want to buy their page and they could just tell that you reek of desperation, that you're going to do anything to get the page, like you're just asking to be taken advantage of, right? So don't be desperate, okay? If you're desperate, you become vulnerable. If you become vulnerable, you're more susceptible. Fuck, these are big words. You're more susceptible to scams, all right? And also, keep in mind there are no guarantees in any business deal, including this one, right? So it's just important to have this mindset going through with this. You could be doing everything right, take all the necessary precautions, whatever, and at the end of the day, there's still no guarantees, right? There's some uncertainties, right? There's things that you can do that are in your power, that you could take precautionary measures to make sure that things go as smooth as possible, but that doesn't mean everything is guaranteed, all right? So just keep that in mind as well. You want to be extra careful when going throughout this process and just make sure that you have the right gut feeling about it, because there are no guarantees at the end of the day, just as any other business deal. Okay, so those are the first two things that are good to be aware of first and foremost. So next up, I want to go over the three main types of scams with you guys, okay? The first one that I see are fake escrow services, okay? So these are built on shady website builders. They have fake Trustpilot reviews, and they have no company name, no address, no nothing, right? So if you guys don't know what an escrow is, let me try to explain it to you, but it's like, let's say it's a middleman, right? So say there's you, and say you have a page, and let's say you have a buyer, a potential buyer. There's a middleman called an escrow, which essentially will take the details of your account and also take the buyer's money and only give one to the other once they have both, right? That's essentially how an escrow works. So what people do is they try to convince you when you're buying or selling a page that they know of this escrow service that you can use, right? But in reality, these most of the time are fake escrow services that they have like permissions to, so that like if you were to put in your money or if you were to put in your account details, like this isn't a real middleman. Like instead of the person in the middle, it's just like them. It's like them, the fake escrow, and you. So if you give your money or your page details to the escrow, you're pretty much just giving it to them, and they're just gonna say fuck off, thank you. You know what I mean? So I've seen this a lot. Like you'll see they'll, when you're going back and forth with someone, they'll be like, oh bro, like I heard about this escrow service, like I've used it so many times. They'll be like, yeah, I've been buying and selling pages for years now. I always use this escrow service. It's super reliable, and they'll try to convince you and be really like, let's say, pushy towards using this specific type of escrow service, right? And then you'll notice this because you'll maybe mention something else. You'll be like, hey, how about this escrow that I found on Google? Like it has good reviews. They'll be like, no, let's just use this one, right? So if you see that, you need to be aware that it is most definitely a scam most of the time, all right? And also, like there could be fake Trustpilot reviews as well. So they might be like, look, like it has so many reviews. This is credible. But at the end of the day, people could just buy reviews on Trustpilot. So it doesn't really say much, right? It's still not trustworthy. Okay. So the solution to this is to use escrow.com, swapped.co, or scrowwise.com. So these are the three actual legit escrows that I've either used myself or people in my trusted network have used over the past years of me being on Instagram. All right. So from my experience, these have worked smoothly, no issues, and it's like a proper middleman, a proper escrow where both sides get what they want, right? Escrow.com is probably for like more of a bigger deal. Like, if you're selling your page for like, a high 5 figures or a 6-figure exit, like you could use escrow.com. That's typically for like the higher ticket ones. And then swapped.co and scrowwise.com are more, let's just say, like average pages, right? So you can keep these ones in mind. These ones, from my experience at least, and from the people I've worked with and heard, have worked the best. Okay? So that's the first main type of scam, fake escrow services. Don't fall victim to that one. All right? So the next one, this one's a bit more sneaky, is the payment plus chargeback. All right? So this is essentially a scam that could happen to you when you are selling your page. So let's say you sell your page, the buyer sends you money for your page. They get access to your page, but once they have access to your page, they file a chargeback, right? And let's say it's a successful chargeback and they get their money back from you. So now they have your page and they have the money that you were supposed to have for the page, right? So yeah, when this happens, you lose the money and the page. And this is not ideal at all, right? So this is why it's very important to make sure that the payment method that you're using is secure and doesn't allow this to be a potential reality, right? You can't sell your page to someone who paid you and then just have them get their money back from you after they get access to the page, right? Because they could get their money back, but if you already gave your details and all the information about your page, you're not getting your page back, right? And even if you show the payment provider like all the proof that this was a successful transaction and they got the page, sometimes it could fall through, right? And they'll actually get your money and the page. So you don't want that to happen. So essentially the solution to this is to use protected payment options and clear agreements. So I'm going to go over more details about what both of these mean in a second here. That way you could understand what these protected payment options are and how to put together a clear agreement so that even if you do use a method for payment and they end up doing a chargeback, that you can make sure that you have the necessary proof and, let's say, data to show the payment provider that it was a successful transaction, okay? And the last type of scam that I see is restoring the account after the sale, all right? So let's just say you're the buyer in the scenario, rather this one, you're the seller. Let's say you're the buyer in the scenario. So this is a scam that could happen to you when you're buying a page. So let's say the seller uses an old email or phone number to regain access after the sale. Okay? So let's just say you're talking with someone, you guys agree on a deal, you buy their page, right? So essentially you send them money for their page so they get your money, but then somehow they use their email or their phone number that's connected to account to regain access to the page and kick you out, right? So that way you never even got the page that you paid for, but you still paid for it, right? So it's like, you've given your money and didn't get anything in return, all right? So this is another thing that could happen. So the solution to this is to ensure that the seller changes the email and unlinks the phone number first before you log in, right? So this is going to be key, because if they still have their email and their phone number linked to the account, they can still potentially get access back to the page once you've already paid, right? And you don't want that. Okay, so yeah, those are the 3 types of scams: fake escrow service, and payment plus chargeback, and then lastly, restoring the account after the sale. These are the 3 most common scams that I see. The most obvious one, the most intuitive one, is like the fake escrow services. Like, you don't have to be a genius to see that this is a scam. But the payment plus chargeback is pretty tricky if you, like, again, don't use protected payment options or clear agreements. And also the restoring the account after the sale can be pretty tricky as well. I've seen people like fall victim to this one. Okay, so now that we've gone over the 3 main types of scams and you're familiar with what they are, and let's say how to pay attention to them and be aware of them and avoid them, let's go over the right way to actually buy an Instagram theme page. All right, so we're going to go over the safe way to buy a theme page and the safe way to sell a theme page. So first, let's go over buying. So the first step throughout this process, guys, should be rapport. So this is obvious. You want to DM them back and forth, ask for insights, screenshots of their insights, the audience breakdown, the engagement, etc. I'll make a whole nother video on like what exactly to look out for and pretty much how to judge the value of a page. But essentially, there are certain criteria that you want to be able to be aware of before you're buying a page, okay? And then overall, you want to get a vibe of the other person. You know what I mean? You just want to sort of feel their energy, like, whether they seem genuine or not. Obviously, this is not the only sort of thing you should keep in mind, because people could fake it. But you just want to sort of overall get a vibe, because oftentimes at the beginning, you might be able to tell something's off before even like wasting your time going through these next steps, okay? So yeah, DM them back and forth, get some screenshots of the page, and just sort of feel the person out and see how they're like, right? Next, the next step here, like once you've done that, is to offer a face-to-face Zoom call, all right? So this is where most scammers or unserious buyers or sellers drop off, right? So you're going to ask them to hop on a meeting, ask if you could turn on the video, also record the call, right? Scammers aren't going to go for this, guys. Like, if you're scamming someone, you don't want your face to be on a call and be recorded scamming someone. Like, it just, why would they want to do that? It just doesn't make any sense, right? So, for example, if you offer this and they're immediately very hesitant and, start to sort of shy away, that's a red flag, right? But if someone is more like, open to the idea, like if they're actually a genuine buyer or a genuine seller, they shouldn't have a problem with this, right? Yes, every once in a while you might find someone who genuinely has like some sort of anxiety or stress or whatever, and they're like, oh, I can't, have my phone on camera, it makes me uncomfortable. Like, yes, you might find someone like that, but it's pretty rare. Like, most of the time people are just going to be fine just being on a call and being recorded if they have nothing to hide, right? So yeah, scammers aren't going to go for this, guys. And on the call, while the video's on, while you're recording it, you want to discuss and agree on terms out loud or on a document, like while the screen is shared, or both, right? And you want to just essentially set expectations for what the transaction is supposed to look like, right? So whether, the email gets changed first, and then, the payment method used, how much it's going to cost, and then the login sequence, like, who's sending the details, is the details getting sent after the payment, and just sort of structuring out in like a sequence. That way the expectations are set beforehand. Okay, this is key because, again, if someone's like actually genuine, like they shouldn't have any problem going throughout this process. Whereas if they're a scammer, most likely they are not going to want to agree to this. But sometimes you might find a scammer who's like really deep in it, and they'll agree to this. But like, let's say worst case scenario, you still end up getting scammed somehow. Like, you have this video proof that you could contact the pretty much the payment providers with if you need proof as to why you should get your money back, for example, right? So this is just a good little step in the process to filter out the scammers and the unserious buyers, okay? And then, yeah, the next step here is to actually do a signed document, right? So this is sort of like a contract. This is optional at the end of the day, but it's a good precautionary measure to have in place. And again, it sort of filters, again, the scammers or the unserious buyers. So it doesn't have to be anything like elaborate or intricate. That's like 10 pages. It could be a simple contract. ChatGPT can make one in like 10 seconds. And really all you need to include is like, who goes first, what platform it's going to be for, the payment terms, the process, the expectations, the refund details. Like for example, if you're selling your page, you want to say like all sales are final, no refunds, things of this nature. That way you pretty much have everything in a like legal document just in case you need it. Okay. So yeah, these two set like a very similar purpose, right? They're going to be sort of as precautionary measures in case you need it. And also they filter out the scammers and unserious buyers, right? But I would very much, let's say, suggest offering this one, the Zoom call, and then the signed document is optional. Although, I always like to be better safe than sorry. I would just go for it as well. Okay. And then lastly is the actual account transfer process. Okay. So when you are, which one are we doing here? We are doing buying a page. So when you're buying a page, you want the seller to first change the email of the page to yours. All right. And then once they do that, you're going to get like a 6-digit code either through email or through text, depending on whether they put your email or their phone number in, or they should do both. And then you'll tell them that. And then once they confirm it, then you could ideally do this on the call. That way you could sort of see everything live. Once you see that they've changed it and it's all good, you either have the screenshots that they've changed it or you're on a live call with them, then you could send the money. All right. And then once you send the money, the seller will provide you all the login details and, unlink the phone number or unlink anything else that's attached to their account. And then you could log in and change the password and change the details to all of your information, right? Just sort of secure everything. Okay. And then also, guys, when you are buying an account, I would first obviously try to see if they'll give you access to the account first. Most of the time, they're not going to agree to that, right? But you may as well see, right? You may as well see, because some people might just be trustworthy. And obviously, if you're a good person, like you'll have no bad intentions with them. You just want to make sure you don't get scammed and then you don't scam them, right? But most likely they're not going to agree to that, right? So once they don't agree to that, offer to pay half first, then you get the details. So you could log into the account, make sure everything's secure, make sure everything's good. And only once you're all logged in and confirmed, then you send the second half. So this is a good way to sort of mitigate risk on your end a little bit, right? That way you don't send all the money and, for example, something happens and let's say worst case scenario, you don't get any of your money back. If you send first, like one half, and worst case scenario, at least you didn't lose all your money. You know what I mean? So it just mitigates risk a little bit on your end, even though it shouldn't have to get to that point. But yeah, that's a little something that you could keep in mind as well. And then also a couple more things to keep in mind. Avoid logging in and changing everything at once. So Meta may flag this. Like I said earlier, it's technically against the terms of service and it's unlikely that there might be an issue. But just to be safe, precautionary measures. Once you log in, obviously you want to change the email and the email and the phone number so it's linked to your details. But don't go in and start like changing, the logo and the username and the bio and like adding a bunch of new followers right away, because, if Instagram detects that there's been a new account logged in from a different IP address and different location, and they also see all these different things changing at the same time, it's just not a good sign, right? It might flag some sort of, you might be seen as a bot or a scam or something like that, right? So you just don't want to change everything right when you get into the page. Just sort of slowly do it. Do it step by step over a few days if possible. But like I said, make sure you change the phone number and the email right away. So that is how you safely buy an account. So now let's go over how to safely, that's how you safely sell an account. So now let's go over how to safely buy an account. All right. Safe way to buy an Instagram theme page. Well, it looks like they both said buy a theme page, but this is more about selling a theme page. Okay, so I think I should be able to change this. Let's do it. I knew something was tripping me up there. All right, let's get back into it. No edits on this one. All right, we're staying raw. We're staying authentic. So again, the first step is going to be rapport. So if you're selling a page, obviously you want to gauge who you're going to be selling the page to. So you're just going to want to look at their profile, obviously. Look for signs of legitimacy, like if you have mutual followers, if they actually have like a legit looking page that has engagement, or if they have a business profile, or if they're running other theme pages, for example. All right. And then, just sort of get an idea of who you're speaking with, because there might be some red flags on the page. Like, for example, if they like have 30,000 followers and a check mark, but then you check their like posts and they only have like 2 likes, you know what I mean? Maybe in that case, it's like someone who's trying to look like they have a professional, like, account that has all these followers and influence, but in reality they're just like, they have fake followers and a whole fake page just to give off the mirage of them being like a serious buyer, right? So just look for little things like that. And then also you're just going to want to ask like qualifying questions, like why are they even buying the page? Have they bought any pages before? What payment methods do they prefer? And just trying to get a gauge of the person, whether they're serious or not, whether there's any red flags that come up, etc. Right? So that is the first step: build rapport and sort of get to know the person, go back and forth, just like the last, buying a page. So next up is going to be the face-to-face Zoom call again. So this is appropriate whether you're selling a page or buying a page, or whether you're selling a page as well, right? So again, offer to have a call like this on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever. Ask if you could have the cameras on and record the video. And again, scammers aren't going to want to go for this most likely. And then, like I said before, discuss and agree on the terms out loud or on the screen, and then set the expectations for the email change, payment method, login sequence, etc. Okay? So like I said, the main thing here is to have an extra precautionary step in between, as well as a step to filter the scammers and the unserious buyers. Okay? Then the same thing with the signed document, just to be safe. And then here's the account transfer process for selling a page. So ideally, again, you want the buyer to send the payment using an agreed method first. Then once they send you the money, you want to confirm that you received the money. And then you could go ahead and change the email to the buyer's email. Ask the buyer to confirm the six-digit email code that they'll get. And once that's confirmed, you could unlink your phone number from the account and then give your login details, so the username and the password, to the buyer. Okay? And then they'll be able to log in, and the email and the phone number should already be changed to their details from what you did. And now you have the money, they have their page, everyone's happy, right? So this should be the account transfer process. And just an extra step here, try to stay available for like a day or two, just to make sure that like Instagram doesn't ask for any additional verification or kick them out for whatever reason, and then they start freaking out. Just stay available, make sure that like you're keeping track on any emails or messages from them, just to make sure everything goes smoothly. Okay? So yeah, that is how you sell a page properly and safely. So now let's go over the best payment methods for each, let's say, transaction, whether you're sending money or receiving money. So if you're sending money, you want to use PayPal goods and services. Okay? This should be your go-to. This is because PayPal goods and services, so pretty much when you send money on PayPal, you have two options: goods and services and friends and family, right? When you send in goods and services, this is more like a business transaction, which means, let's say, there's more support if something goes wrong from PayPal's end, because this is like an actual business transaction. And I believe the someone gets taxed, either it's the person sending the money or the person receiving the money, someone gets taxed because it's a business transaction. And because of that, there's like extra support, let's say, if worst case scenario, something goes wrong. And then I'll talk about the other option, friends and family, here in a second as well, right? So yeah, for example, you want to send money this way because, if something goes wrong, worst case scenario, you could always sort of dispute or appeal the payment and have a chance to get your money back, right? If you have the proof and take screenshots and all this stuff, most times, more often than not, you'll get your money back. Then also sending through a credit card, all right? Because it's sort of the same concept here. A credit card isn't your money, it's the bank's money. So for example, if you get scammed, you can get in a phone call, but it's got to go. If you get scammed, you could contact your bank right away and sort of dispute the payment. That way they could like make sure it doesn't go through, right? So if it's like impending, it'll make sure to cancel it, make sure that it doesn't go through, or some way that you could get your money back, right? Because the bank needs to have some sort of good level of customer support and satisfaction, okay? So that should be another option. And then also escrow.com. This is the one that I was talking about earlier, or the other two that I had listed. These are the trusted middlemans, the trusted escrows that are reliable. And then also you could send money through Wise. So this is sort of like a more direct transfer, let's say. But Wise also has some decent support in terms of getting your funds back, worst case scenario if something goes wrong. Okay? So these are the safest, most protected payment methods to send money. Reason being is because they're prioritized by the ability to dispute or recover the funds if scammed. Okay? So when it comes to receiving money, ideally you want to receive the money through PayPal, friends, and family, right? So the reason you want to receive through friends and family is because if someone pays you through friends and family, it's like the deal is sort of done from there, right? So the reason PayPal offers two options is like one is like when you're sending money to your friends and family, so it's like there shouldn't be any reason for disputing or refunding it, right? Whereas with a business, like, the product might be not good, you might need a return, so that's in place. But you want to make sure when you're receiving money, it's friends and family. That way they can't do the scam number 2, which is the payment and chargeback, right? Because if they pay you on PayPal goods and services, then they could get access to your page and then later on like file a chargeback and then somehow you like don't get your money, right? Whereas if they send you in friends and family, they're not getting their money back, okay? So don't scam them, but, give them the page, but make sure you get your money and that it's protected and that they can't charge back, okay? And then the next is a direct wire transfer, so like Zelle or Wise as well. So Wise can also be a way you could receive the money because it's more of a direct transfer and there's not as much, let's say, support when it comes to chargebacks, right? So Zelle is also a direct like bank wire transfer. So if you could get them to like pay you in Zelle or Wise, like that's a pretty structured and secure method to receive payment, right? Because that, again, makes sure that you're protected from chargebacks and scams, right, below here. And then last one is crypto. If you use crypto and you're used to sending and receiving payments on crypto, and you're also talking with someone who's down to pay you through crypto, go ahead and take crypto, because once a crypto transaction's there, like, that's sort of set in stone, like no going back, right? But yeah, those are methods you could use that pretty much keep you safe from chargebacks and scams. So obviously, guys, like there's going to be methods that are ideal for sending money and there's methods ideal for receiving money, which means when you're speaking with someone, like you guys might not agree at first, right? And that doesn't mean they're a scammer right away if you guys can't agree on a payment method. It's natural. But at the end of the day, you want to be flexible, but you also want to protect yourself, right? So, when starting the negotiation and trying to figure out how to buy and sell the page and make the transaction, like keep these in mind, but also be willing to sort of like negotiate a little bit. Don't let someone convince you to like pretty much receive the funds through good services because you don't want to risk the idea of like them doing a chargeback. But just keep these in mind, right? Yes, you might need to be a little flexible and like sort of figure out a way to agree, right? This is why it's important to be like good at persuasion and negotiation. That way you could sort of have things your way and make sure you're safe. Obviously, with that in mind of you having good intentions and not wanting to scam someone yourself. So yeah, keep these in mind, guys. These are the best payment methods. And now I just want to go over some red flags, okay? And first off, the first red flag is if a deal feels rushed or too good to be true, right? So if you're going back and forth with someone in the DMs and they're like rushing you, or they're being rude, or they're like putting pressure on you to make a decision quickly, like that's just a red flag, right? That's like red flags 101. And also too good to be true, right? If someone's offering you like $40,000 for your theme page and maybe it's only worth like $10,000, like don't jump up all up excited and like, get your bank ready to look at how many digits you're going to have in your bank account. Like, there's the quote that goes, if something seems too good to be true, it most likely is, right? So whether it's you're like selling your page, someone's offering you way too much, or you're buying a page, someone's like really, really lowballing their own page, like that rarely happens. Just be aware of that because that's a tactic that scammers use to try and make people desperate, like I was talking about earlier, all right? So yeah, like I said earlier, the suspicious or fake escrow service is another red flag. Be aware of that. Whenever you see someone bring this up, most likely it's going to be a scam. So just keep in mind for that. Also, pushing for unsafe payment methods, so crypto or PayPal, friends and family. Like if someone off the bat is like saying like, hey bro, I'm selling my page, pay me in crypto, blah, 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 blah. Like if they're sort of pushing that from the beginning, like it's not a good sign, right? Because they're literally pushing for the most unsafe payment method from your perspective, right? And they're just wanting to get the money and not have any chance of you getting your money back. So that is something that you want to be aware of, and scammers are likely going to always try and push of these unsafe payment methods right from the beginning, okay? And then also incomplete or sketchy page insights, right? So for example, if you're going back and forth with the DMs when you're buying a page, and they're sending you the insights so you could get clarity on like the page and like where the audience is from and the engagement rate and these things. You want to make sure that these insights are looking good and accurate, right? Because there's a couple things. People can like Photoshop insights, unfortunately, so it can make the page look like it has a much better engagement rate and gain a lot more followers than it has, or have a lot more higher U.S. audience than it has, when in reality it's like all India audience. Like, just keep in mind, make sure that people aren't like photoshopping their insights, and also sometimes if you're buying a page, they might send you insights from like 6 months ago, maybe where they had better results. Whereas, if they were to send you the insights from the last month, maybe they were like losing followers, for example, right? So you just want to make sure that the insights that they're sending you are up to date and accurate and untouched, right? And then another red flag is if they're refusing a video call. So this is probably one of the biggest ones here. If they're refusing the video call, if they don't want to be recorded or anything, most likely a scammer, right? Especially if it's like, sorry if there's any like Nigerians watching this, but like if there's some like, big ass, like scary looking Nigerian dude, and he's like a scammer, and he's like trying to convince little Timmy to sell him his page, like he's not going to want to get on a call with little Timmy looking all scary and shit, you know what I mean? So, yeah, if they're refusing the video call, most likely they're a scammer. But like I said, maybe there's some like anxious kid who has some like nervous disorders or whatever, and he doesn't want to hop on a call. In that case, you could try and like figure out what else you could do, but most of the time, if they don't want to hop on the call, they're a scammer. And another one here, the last one, is inconsistent communication or shady behavior. All right. So if they're like taking like days to reply, or if they're sort of just like making up weird excuses or just having weird behavior, like, or if they, honestly, if like their English is kind of bad, like it just might not be the best sign. So just keep that in mind as well. That might be a red flag that you want to watch out for. Okay. Last but not least, guys, is just some final tips here. Okay. Firstly is to not chase the craziest return on investment ever. Look for safe, fair, sustainable deals. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. So don't look for like crazy ROI deals where it's like you're getting offered a page for $200 when it's actually worth like $5,000, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna make this, like I'm gonna get this page and then I'm gonna flip it for a profit. Like, look for realistic, safe, fair, sustainable deals, and you'll be a lot better off that way. Promise you. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't get any good deals, but most of the time, the deals that are too good to be true most likely are. But if you're good, if you're like me back in the day, you'll be able to snipe some good pages from people who maybe aren't just as knowledgeable as they should be about the value of their page. A next one here is to be patient, as the right buyer or seller will come to you eventually. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Don't be desperate. Don't be like, wanting to sell or buy a page as soon as possible. That's just not going to work out for you in the way you want. Be patient. If you're constantly, gauging buyers or sellers and like, having discussions and talking back and forth with people, like you'll find the right person eventually. Like, obviously you don't want to be too stingy or too picky to where it's like you're sitting on like waiting to buy a page for like 6 months, just waiting for the perfect deal. Like, you don't want to wait for the perfect deal, but you'll know when the right one comes about. Okay. So just be patient for it. And the last one here is to not be afraid to walk away. So if something feels off, just trust your gut, right? This comes down to like if they're not being flexible with the negotiation and they're not asking like the price that you want for your page, for example, or you're not getting the price you want to buy the page, don't be afraid to walk away, right? Because when you walk away, you have the power in the negotiation process, right? And also, if something feels off, you could walk away, right? If someone's just rubbing you the wrong way or just has a weird vibe and you don't know exactly why, but that's just your gut feeling, you should probably trust your gut feeling, because your gut, humans have a lot more intuition than they think, right? So if your gut's trying to tell you something, you don't know why, just listen to it. Be safe. Better be safe than sorry. And that will increase the likelihood of a favorable outcome on your end. Okay. So yeah, guys, this is the full complete guide on how to safely buy or sell an Instagram theme page and not get scammed. Okay. So we've gone over like, things to be aware of, red flags, just overall tips, good payment methods, the workflow and the process of buying a page, selling a page, different precautionary measures you can put in place to make sure it's as safe as possible. So this should be everything you need to safely buy and sell a page. So, keep this video handy, save it or something, because if you're ever going to buy and sell a page, you could pull this up and just make sure you're, following all the right steps. All right. So yeah, aside from that, guys, that's all I have for you in this video. For those who are interested in potentially wanting to learn from me directly one-on-one, I do one-on-one mentoring. This is not for everyone. These are only for people who are serious about wanting to like start or scale their theme page and grow and make good money with it. So if that's you, then there is a link at the top of the description where you could apply to work directly alongside one-on-one with me, and we could just see if it's a good fit. Right? If it is, great, we could get to work. If not, at least you gave it a shot and saw for yourself, right? And then aside from that, guys, if you like the video, if you found it valuable, drop a like and subscribe to see more valuable videos like this. And also write in the comment section if you have any questions about anything that I covered today in this video, or if you have any suggestions for future videos you want me to make. All right, because I read all the comments, I'll respond to all of them, and I'll also seriously consider the suggestions for other videos because I just want to provide value to you guys. All right, so yeah, aside from that, thank you for watching, thank you for staying to the end, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.